Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another Preseason 8 League of Legends Champion Guide. Today I'll be covering Support Zyra, Rise of the Thorns.
Feel the Thorns' embrace.
Alright, so let's kick off this guide like usual with the pros and the cons. So for the pros, Zyra is a very bursty champion with great sustain damage as well. She can either quickly burst down champions or have really high sustain damage in team fights as long as she can enrage some of her plants. She's got a pretty decent amount of crowd control, and she is one of those support champions that can carry with the really high damage that she deals. She's also got some pretty high lane control because of her plants and her seeds, and she's strong at all stages of the game. Now Zyra, however, is a very squishy and immobile champion. That's going to mean that positioning correctly is going to be very important because if somebody gets on top of you, you're very squishy and you're not going to be able to run away from them. Now Zyra also has no built-in sustain or shields. That's going to mean you have to be very careful in the lane phase because there's nothing you can do to stop damage or get your health back. As long as you can dodge the majority of the enemy skill shots, however, and you can land your own, you should have a pretty successful lane phase. For my runes, I like to go for Sorcery and Inspiration, grabbing Arcane Comet as my keystone. This will give you a lot of extra poke damage, and as long as you can land your E ability on the enemy, it will land for sure because the enemy will be rooted. I then like to follow up by getting Mana Flow banned because Zyra does have some mana issues early on in the game, and this will help with that. Then I grab Absolute Focus so I deal more damage above 70% health and get Scorch to get even more poke damage. In the Inspiration side, I like to get Perfect Timing so I get a free stopwatch, and then get Magical Footwear so I get free boots at 10 minutes. You do also have the option of going for Cosmic Insight so you get 5% extra cooldown reduction, but I definitely prefer getting the boots and the stopwatch myself. For your first summoner spell, you want to pick up Flash. Zyra is a very squishy and immobile champion, so Flash is a great way to get you out of a bad position. You can also use it offensively and flash forward and follow it up with the Grasping Roots to root an enemy that's far away from you. Now for your next summoner spell, Ignite is a great option. It will give you some more kill pressure in the lane and get you and your AD carry snowballing. Now a really good alternative to Ignite would be Exhaust. This summoner spell is great if you're looking to shut down damage on the enemy team instead. Consider taking it against high damage champions like Vayne or Yasuo. Zyra's passive is Garden of Thorns. This is what spawns your seeds that allows you to spawn plants from the rest of your abilities. Zyra plants a seed, occasionally 2, every 8 seconds at all levels in her vicinity, each of which lasts for 30 seconds and briefly grants sight of the spot Zyra planted them in. Enemy champions can destroy seeds planted by Garden of Thorns by stepping on them after 1 second of them having been planted. Zyra can only have a total of 8 seeds planted at any given time, and any that do spawn afterwards will delete the oldest one. So this passive is pretty important because this will spawn the seeds that you can spawn plants from with your Q and your E. It is pretty random, however, so it can be pretty annoying when they're not spawning where you want them to, but you will want to try to spawn plants whenever you can and harass the enemy champion. Whenever you're going for a dragon, you want to try to spawn a couple of these so you can make multiple plants that will be able to tank that dragon. Your Q ability is Deadly Spines, which is your main poking ability that also spawns a Thorn Spitter if used over a seed. When activated, Zyra sprouts thorny spines at the target location that appears after a 0.625 second delay, dealing magic damage to all enemies hit. If Deadly Spines hits a seed, it sprouts into a Thorn Spitter, which remains on the battlefield for 8 seconds. So this here is a really nice ability because it has an 800 range and a pretty damn long width as well, so it's great for poking the enemies. That's primarily what you're going to be using it for, and if you do need to shove the lane really quickly with your AD carry, you can help them with this ability as well. The Thorn Spitter is your longest range plant, so it's also great for poking the enemies as well. This plant doesn't apply a slow like your Vine Lasher, but it has a much longer range, so if you need to poke from a pretty long range, make sure you're spawning this plant with your seeds. Your W ability is Rampant Growth, which is your way of spawning seeds yourself, which is great for getting plants on the map and also checking brush. Passively, Zyra stores a seed periodically up to a maximum of 2 stored at once. Killing an enemy grants 20% charge towards a seed. This is increased to 100% for enemy champion takedowns, large monsters, and large minion kills. When activated, Zyra plants a seed at the target location which lasts for 60 seconds and briefly grants sight of the spot Zyra planted it in. So the main reason this ability is strong is because you'll be able to put a seed wherever you want to and therefore be able to spawn a plant in that location. So when you're comboing, you want to use a spell and then drop a seed before the spell actually hits that area to spawn a plant in that location. It's also really strong to check brushes with this ability because you are a very squishy champion. If somebody's in a brush waiting for you and you walk by without checking it, you're most likely going to die. Your E ability is Grasping Roots, which does damage in a line, roots all targets hit, and spawns Vine Lashers on any seeds hit as well. When activated, Zyra sends a surge of vines in the target direction, dealing magic damage to all enemies hit and rooting them for a short duration. If Grasping Roots hits a seed, it sprouts into a Vine Lasher which remains on the battlefield for 8 seconds. So this here is a really strong ability because of course roots all targets hit, and it does have a scaling root duration as well of up to 1.75 seconds. That means this ability can be pretty devastating because it does have a 1100 range and can root multiple targets. The Vine Lashers that this ability spawns don't have a really long range like the Thorns Spitter, but they do slow targets hit by 30%. That makes it a really strong ability, and when I am going for a full combo, I like to spawn at least one of these plants so I can slow the target and keep them in the area to easily land my ultimate. Your ultimate is Stranglethorns, which is a large AoE ability that does some pretty decent damage and also knocks up all targets caught within it for 1 second. When activated, Zyra summons a monstrous thicket at the target location, dealing magic damage to all enemies in the area as it expands. After 2 seconds, the vines snap upwards, knocking up all targets hit in the thicket for 1 second. So this ability is really strong because it has a really large AoE and can hit multiple targets rather easily. It has a 70% AP ratio, so it hits decently hard, but it's also really strong because of that 1 second knockup. Now what makes it even stronger is the fact that any plants that are caught within this area as well will be enraged and deal 50% more damage. So when you're going for a full-on engage, you want to try to spawn multiple plants before you use this ability because they will all be enraged and do some massive damage. For your skill order, you have multiple different options, but my favorite one is this one right here. In all cases, you will want to put a point into your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. Now as for me, I always like to max my E ability first because it does have a scaling root duration, which makes it a really strong ability. Now I will note, however, if you are against a very mobile bot lane, something like Ezreal and whatnot, then you may not want to max your E and max your Q instead because landing that root will be a lot harder. In either case though, you'll then want to max your W ability second so you get that seed recharge time down, and then max the other ability. Both the Q max and an E max are very viable, and it kinda depends on the enemies you're against. For your main harassment combo, you first want to use your Q ability over the enemy champion, and before it actually roots, use your W so it will spawn a plant when it does erupt. At this point you can just start auto attacking or use your E ability to root the target in place. The main reason you want to spawn a plant from your Q ability in your harassment combo is because it does have a 750 range, which is much longer than the 400 range from the one from your E ability. For your all-in combo, open up with your E ability and use your W ability to spawn plants as the E goes towards the target. This will instead spawn Vine Lashers, which will slow the target by 30%, keeping them in the area. At this point, use your Q ability over the enemy champion, and if you have any other charges, use your W to spawn more plants. If you are level 6, you then have the option of using your ultimate as well. This will enrage all the plants as well, increasing their damage by 50%. For your AD carry synergies, you first have Ezreal. Ezreal will work great with Zyra because you two together are going to have a lot of poke damage. Whenever the Zyra is able to root the target, Ezreal is also going to be able to land his Q ability a lot easier. You guys will have a lot of kill pressure together, and as long as the Ezreal's following up on your E ability's root, you should have a pretty easy lane phase. For the next AD carry synergy, I've got Misfortune. Now the reason Misfortune is going to work great with Zyra because as long as Zyra lands either an E or an ultimate and Misfortune ults on top of it, all of those targets are going to be pretty much dead. She's also a really strong champion in the early and the mid game, so as long as you're landing roots for her to follow up on, you guys should be destroying the enemy champions. For the next synergy here, I've got Twitch. Now if the Twitch goes into stealth and you can land an E ability, you guys are going to have an insane amount of damage. This is going to destroy those single targets, but you can also combine your ultimates together to destroy the enemy team. As long as you can knock them all up and hold them in place, Twitch will be able to activate his ultimate and just sweep through the entire enemy team, doing some devastating damage. And for the last one here, I've got Vayne. Now Vayne is a really strong champion right now, and of course, yet again, if you can hold them in place, she will be able to get off her W rather easily and do a lot of damage. You do also have a lot of lane presence with your plants and your seeds, so this is going to allow Vayne to get the farm that she really needs. You always have the option of just taking control of the lane and letting the Vayne farm so she's really strong in the late game. During the lane phase, you'll first want to try to harass the enemy bot lane as much as you can. You'll first want to use your deadly spines on the enemy and quickly drop a Rampant Growth underneath before the spell lands, so you'll place a seed and make a plant. Then try and get a few auto attacks in as well to deal as much damage as you can. When you're finally level 3, you can always add your Grasping Roots as well to root the enemy. Now you will also need to make sure that your lane is warded as much as possible to watch for ganks from the enemy jungler and mid laner. Zyra is a very squishy and immobile champion, and if the enemy catches you off guard, you're going to die very quickly. In teamfights, you'll have to position yourself in your team's backline. If you position yourself too far forward, you might need a crowd control and die instantly. Try your best to root as many targets as you can with your Grasping Roots. You'll want to try to get the spell to go through any of your seeds from your Garden of Thorns if you can to spawn plants. Of course, you always have the option of using your Rampant Growth as well to spawn seeds quickly before your spells land to make additional plants. When you see an opportunity, use your Stranglethorns when multiple enemies are clumped up to deal a bunch of damage and knock them up, and also enrage your plants, making you do even more damage. Now let's look at some of your hard matchups, and first up is Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank's going to be pretty hard for you because as long as he can grab you, you're basically just dead on the spot. He's going to pop you up and then silence you and do a big chunk of damage with his ultimate, and you're not going to be able to even flash away. Therefore, you're going to need to sit behind your minions and your plants as much as possible so it will block the grab. If you think he's coming and you're going to be completely screwed, try to spawn a plant really quickly so he won't be able to grab you through it. For the next hard matchup here, I've got Leona. Leona's another champion that can easily all-in you if she gets on top of you, so you need to keep a range at all times and make sure she can't E towards you. Try your best to poke her down as much as you can. Now she is a very tanky champion, so this will take a while to do, but if you do it over and over again, you'll eventually get her out of the lane. Whenever she's level 6, make sure you position yourself very far away from her because that will stun you and she can easily engage. For the next one here, I have Scion. You used to be pretty decent against Scion, but now with the Arcane Comet, he's pretty damn strong against you. He'll be able to shove minions or your own plants into you, and that Arcane Comet will usually land because of the slow his E provides. Therefore, you're going to have to be very careful of his poke because if the slow does land, he's usually going to follow up with a Q, and it's going to really hurt you. And for the last one here, we've got Taric. Now Taric is going to be pretty hard for you because yet again he can all-in you if he does land his E ability, and that will give him a lot of kill pressure. Therefore, yet again, use your superior range to go nowhere near Taric and try to poke him down as much as you can. He does have some okay sustain because of his Q ability, but you should be able to outdamage this and get him out of lane. When you're planning to go for all-ins, be very careful of his ultimate because it can easily save himself or his teammates if he times it right. Alright, so with all that covered, let's look at the item build, which starts with a Spell Thief's Edge, health potions, and a warding totem. This is going to give you some extra ability power and some nice mana regeneration so you can poke more often, it's going to hit harder, and it's also going to give you some gold. For your core build, you want to go for a Eye of the Watchers, Liandry's, and a Rylai's Crystal Scepter. This is going to give you a really nice chunk of ability power, and of course you're also going to have the wards from the Eye of the Watchers. Now the main reason you want to go for a Liandry's and a Rylai's is because the burn and the slow that these items provide will also work with your plants. That means your plants are going to be doing a pretty damn significant amount of damage with this burn added, and they'll also be slowing. Yeah, sure, the plants from your E already slow, but now so will the ones from your Q. There's actually a pretty nice amount of health on the Liandry's and the Rylai's as well, so you'll have a pretty decent health pool so you won't get bursted as fast as normal. Now for alternatives, you could of course go for the Frost Queen's Claim and the Ruby Sightstone, however I really hate wasting a slot for the Ruby Sightstone because it has no ability power, so I don't really go for that myself. It is viable though because the slow from the Ghost is pretty strong and it will allow you to land your E a lot easier. Now for your boot options, you can go for Sork Shoes to increase your damage by getting magic penetration, Ionian Boots for 10% CDR, or Boots of Mobility if you plan to spend a lot of time roaming and you want to gank a lot. For the item pool, you first have the Void Staff. This is a really nice item on Zyra because it'll give you a lot of magic penetration so your spells will hit tanky targets hard as well. Now if you're looking to go hard carry mode, you could get a Rabadon's Death Cap. This is the item in the game that has the most ability power on it, so if you're looking to hard carry the game and you need a lot of damage, this is the item you'll want to go for. If you then feel like you need a defensive, you can get either the Banshee's Veil or Azonia's. The Banshee's Veil is really strong against champions that are looking to all-in you, but they kind of struggle at taking it off, something like a Fizz that wants to ult you from range. Then of course the Azonia's is really strong as well because that 2-second stasis will save your life a lot of times in a single game. If you then instead needed some Grievous Wounds and wanted some cooldown reduction, you could always go for a Morellonomicon. It's a pretty damn good item on mid lane Zyra. It's not the greatest on support Zyra because you really need the other items, but it is viable. Then finally, if you wanted to be more of a true support, you could always get the Redemption. This of course gives you a really solid AoE heal, and if you're looking to siege a lot, it can be a pretty fantastic item. For the example full build though, I take that core build, get some Sork Shoes, and then get the Void Staff and the Rabadon's Death Cap. You're going to have a really big chunk of ability power, so you're going to be doing a lot of damage, you'll have the magic penetration to get through magic resist, and your abilities are also going to be slowing and doing a burn. With this core build, even though Zyra is technically a support, you can still carry the game. And that's all I've got for support Zyra in Season 8. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and visit my video description below. I have a link to all my social medias, and I do also have a Discord server, so that's one you should definitely check out. But other than that, thank you guys a ton for watching, I really do appreciate it, so take it easy, have a good day, and peace.